Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Giles. Yes, finally a Brit. We haven't had a Brit on for ages. Hey. Lovely to have you on, Chris.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Yeah. So, healing. What does healing mean to you, Chris?
So it's changed a lot over the years, but I've been thinking about this a lot for the last few days because I knew that's always your first question. And I think that healing means to me being able to fix all those connections in my brain that weren't joined when I was taken away from my mother at birth. Because I've done a lot of research and reading into the whole why we feel like we do as adoptees. And they say that what does it, Joe Dispenza, he's really into it, and he said what fires together wires together. And there's a certain part of the brain apparently when we're born that needs that motherly love for those connections to be made, and they're not made. But then when you look into healing, you can repair them.
So it's a brain thing.
Yeah, it's about correcting your brain to be like a non-adoptee brain.
Yeah. I think I read something from Joe Dispenza a while ago, and it didn't particularly land for me, I guess, because I haven't, listened to a lot of his stuff. Does he have anything to say? But I'm sure he's got plenty of books and plenty of podcasts and plenty of audios and stuff like that. Does he have anything to say kind of specifically about adoption?
No.
It's you're picking what he's talking about in the general, and you're kind of like addressing that to your situation and the adoption relinquishment stuff.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that I listen to, but they never seem to touch on adoption. And I think the reason for that is because it's like there's another guy, I can't remember his name, really, Gabor Mate, and everything that he says about trauma and relinquishment, and he never ever mentions the word adoption, but you can see exactly what he's saying. But he won't do anything specific, I'm guessing, because it will, for adoptees, it will kind of make us think, yeah, see, it's a bit more confirmation that we can never heal. But Joe Dispenza says basically that everybody can heal from any trauma, and the more you can convince yourself to just think about positive things and what you want and what you need, the more you think that it will happen. But it's easy to say, but maybe not so easy to do.
Yeah, I've heard Gabor Mate talking about missing his mum. So there was a stage where he was without his mum for a while. Did he get raised by his grandparents for 6 months or something?
I think it was only 6 weeks, wasn't it? His mum gave him to a stranger in the street, and because the war and what was going on, and he said that's where all his trauma started. And but it's everywhere. When Matthew Perry from Friends, his book starts, I think he was actually going to call his book Unaccompanied Minor, because he was put on a plane when he was 5 or 6 years old to be flown a long way away, and he actually had that round his neck, unaccompanied minor. And a lot of his trauma came from that. So there's a lot of evidence out there, which we all know, that being separated from your mum at any age as a child is really traumatic.
Yeah. What's your earliest memory of that?
Of being adopted, being separated.
Of the separation.
Oh well, that's an interesting question. I've not been asked that before. I don't remember. I don't remember a lot of my childhood. There's one photo that I've got of me at 5 months, and somebody's written on the back, Paula at 5.5 months, one tooth nearly through, but it doesn't say who's written it. So that's the only photo I've got as a baby. And then the next photo that I've got is of me naked in a paddling pool at about 3 years old, stepping up with a bucket in my hand. And I look at that photo and I try and remember, but I can't remember anything.
I think it's quite common amongst us that we don't remember a lot. And listeners, Paula was the name that Chris's birth mother gave you, right? That's right. Paula.
Yeah.
I don't remember a lot either. I think you mentioned a very important word a couple of minutes ago, confirmation. And so me and my wife have, and so I can't remember the relinquishment thing, because obviously, it's 5 weeks, just over 5 weeks old. So my birth mum gave birth to me, and then I think she took me, or I was taken to a short-term foster care, and then she picked me up. She picked me up from short-term foster care and took me to the agency. So she had to give me away twice, which must have really hurt. Like, my wife and I have had 4 dogs in our time together, and those dogs, some of those dogs have cried on their first night away, and like, I'm thinking, was I like that? And I could quite easily kind of confirm that to myself. Do you know what I mean? Our brains can confirm stuff, and there's a psychological term for it. I don't know if you probably heard it. It's called confirmation bias.
Yeah.
So, what can you see confirmation bias? Well, first off, how would you define it? Because you might define it better than me.
Well, I mean, any facts that I do find out, well, that must be true if it's positive. It's but I recently discovered that she did love me and she did want me. So, all of a sudden I'm talking to my friends and I'm adding bits in. I'm thinking, just from what my half brother, who I've recently have been in touch with, whatever he says that sounds good is I make myself believe it's true because it's helped with my healing. So but anything, and obviously I would never say anything negative, so because I don't want to hear that, because I've got, there's so many gaps. I mean, I was apparently taken away at birth and my mum wasn't even allowed to hold me, and then somebody said I had something wrong with my eyes, so I couldn't be adopted until I was 6 months old. So I went to a foster home, but I don't know when. I often imagine, in the 60s, you see the pictures of all the babies in the little glass boxes all lined up along, and people say that when you are taken from your mum, you either go into shock and just say nothing and do nothing, or you just cry and cry and cry. And I don't know why, but I think that I was one of those that just did nothing and was quite vacant. And then when I was on my search 30 years ago, the first time around, I managed to find the foster people, and I rang them up, and she said, "Oh, Paula, you were such a lovely baby. I didn't want you to go." You know, she might not even have said that. She might have just said, "Yeah, you were okay." But, you know, to me now, my confirmation bias is, yeah, I was just such a wonderful baby. And she said that my mum went to visit me when I was there, and my dad did. She liked my mum, but she didn't like my dad. Um, and that was it. That's all I can remember really from, you know, the conversation with the foster parents. Now, I could try and find the number again and give her another ring, but I think, do you know what? No. What I've gleaned from everything, I'm happy with, because it's all positive. So yeah, I don't want to
Yeah,
ruin that.
that's amazing, because I've never thought about confirmation bias in a positive respect.
Mm.
I've always
Okay.
thought about it in a negative one.
Yeah.
So you've opened my eyes there.
Yeah.
You asked me before we started recording, you know, how much this has helped with, you know, doing the podcast has helped with my healing. And I think I might be underplaying it on the basis of what you just said. I might be
Yeah.
underestimating it. Yeah. So yeah, confirmation bias is, I've heard it expressed as what the thinker thinks, the prover proves.
Yeah.
And I think we're probably we're biased against bias. You know,
Yeah.
think of like gender bias. You think of gender bias, bad
Yeah.
thing. Think of race bias, bad thing.
Yeah.
Right. So confirmation bias, bad thing. No, no,
No.
no, listeners. You've heard it first. You probably heard it, listeners, before, right? But it's the first time Simon Ben or David Anthony Flower has heard that, you know, confirmation bias can be a good thing. We could be biased about a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, you know, before I was given that information, I wasn't loved. I wasn't good enough. You know, she didn't want me. Why didn't she want me? You know, and as soon as I heard that she did want me, um, you know, for me, that's been the biggest part of my healing, and she did love me. And her,
Can you
um,
can you talk us through that? Can you talk
um,
us through that moment, that healing moment when you found out?
yeah, it was just really strange because I mean, I take a long time to process things, and I found my two half brothers via Facebook. Can you believe? A few years ago, and I didn't really like. Um, well, basically, my mum had been after she gave me away, she became an alcoholic, and when she was probably in her 40s, her husband died, and she got even worse, and she was sectioned for mental health. And when she died, so the first son that they had, her with her new husband, she called Paul. So to me, that's definitely confirmation that she loved me because I was Paula, you know. But again, that could have been absolutely nothing to do with it. She might have just liked the name Paul. But because I heard that she did love me, she did want me. Um, you know, that's the story I've made up around that, which is, you know, doesn't matter whether it's true or not. It's really helped me. But and so I didn't really keep in touch with them. Because I discovered that she died in this home, and neither of them knew. And I thought, you know, she's your mum that brought you up, and I've just gone onto Facebook and found a group in Deptford, which is where they lived. Asked if anybody knew her, and within 20 minutes, I got a reply saying, "Yeah, really sorry to tell you this, she's dead." So then I went onto the WhatsApp group that my half brother had created, Bros and Sis, and it was all exciting to start with when I first found them. And I said, she's dead. Surely you must have known. You're a next of kin. And one said, well, I kind of guessed. And the other one didn't know. So I blurted out on this WhatsApp group that his mum was actually dead. And, clearly nobody went to her funeral. And then I started thinking, well, how do people get buried or, cremated if they've got no money and they're in a home? And, so it started all these questions. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so sad. So that kind of pushed me away from them a bit. But then a few months ago, I started thinking again, do you know what? They can answer some questions for me. So I got back in touch, and he's been, really lovely with saying everything that, that he remembers and that happened. And so I just woke up so he sort of went through everything, and I was trying to process it all, and then thinking that she couldn't even hold me at birth, so her mum had said, take the baby away straight away. But again, I've got no evidence of all this, but so that sort of says to me that she, to not even be able to hold me, that's pretty bad. So so I think from all that, I woke up one day last week, and that pain had gone. I've always called it a hole in my heart. And it just wasn't there anymore. And it literally was like a miracle, because I think all the information that I've been gathering from podcasts and books, and I've constantly made it my life's mission to sort of try and discover how to get rid of the hole in my heart. And I think everything added together, plus that bit of information that she did want me and she did love me, just, I woke up and all the pain was gone.
Wow. But you said it's taken you a while to process. It's almost as if, like, has it been processing in the background, and then suddenly you kind of noticed it, that it's not there anymore?
Yeah, I think so, because I was always aware of it every day. At least a few times a day, I'd always sort of feel that missing link, and the fact that I just didn't feel complete, and there was a big heartache. But for years I didn't know what it was. I really didn't know it was about being adopted, which is quite crazy now looking back. But I tried everything to sort of fix the hole in my heart. I was always looking for something, always searching for something that would fix it. And it wasn't until I addressed it again a few months ago that I thought, right, you've done everything possible to try and fix it, and the only thing left is trying to look into the whole adoption situation. So part of me thinks, if only I'd have realized that 40 years ago. but we don't know, do we? We just don't know.
We don't know. This is just going to sound a little bit strange. You said, use the word missing link, and you talked about reading a load of books. Have you come across a book by an adoptee called Sid Banks called The Missing Link?
It doesn't ring a bell, but I've probably read about 100 books on adoption over the years.
It's not an adoption book. It's a book about thinking and feeling and consciousness and stuff like that. I'll put a link in the show notes, listeners. You can take a look at it. This guy was he had a big he had a big experience, a big aha moment, a big epiphany moment. Somebody said to him, he'd been reading some books, and somebody said to him, he was on a retreat. He was on a weekend with his, I don't know whether you call it a retreat or not. He was on a weekend for couples counselling, right? And he was walking along with a guy who was a counsellor, and the counsellor said to him, you're not insecure, Sid. You just think you are. And some penny dropped for him in that moment, to the extent of how he's thinking, how his thinking and our thinking creates our reality.
Mm.
And The Missing Link by Sydney Banks is kind of one of the books he wrote on the back of that. So he's no longer with us. He kind of died, I think, about 10 years ago, something like that. But it's an interesting area when we're looking at thought and stuff. So you talked about healing being able to fix the connections that weren't joined at birth. So is that what the quest has been about?
Well, I think, since I learned that probably about 5 years ago, I realised that, that to me, that's what I needed to try and do. And yeah, I think, just trying to think the things that are more positive and that I want to believe and that I want to be, rather than thinking all the negative things. I wasn't loved, and well, not that I wasn't loved, because lots of people do love people, but to me, you have to be loved as a child in the way you need to be loved. I often see parents who really love their children, but they can't get on. They fall out, they're estranged, and it's because they're not finding out the way that child needs to be loved, individually. I mean, I've got 3 kids, and they're all completely different, but I love them the way they need to be loved in their own different ways.
Yeah.
And we're really close, really close. They're like my best friends. But obviously I think I've been super aware of that because I never felt loved growing up.
You you shared something about this yesterday when we did the pre-interview chat, and I'd never heard that before, actually. This idea that love needs to be kind of tailored to each individual.
Yeah. Well, unconditional love, every parent hopefully has got for their child or their children, but unless they can make that clear to the child, they'll never feel loved. To me, it's all about being there for them, and when they need a lift or when they need something doing, or they need a hug, or they need you to sit down and listen to them, and just being really present for them for their needs.
Do people call this attunement? Is that what you?
Probably. I mean, I've not heard that used before.
But are you saying that the kind of the fact that you didn't feel, it's an Adele song, isn't it? To Make You Feel My Love.
Yeah.
You didn't feel your adoptive parents' love, or they were incapable of loving you the way that you wanted to be. You needed to be loved.
Yeah.
So you were determined to do parenting differently for your own 3 kids.
Yeah, and they're the only family I've got, and they're the only. I'm desperate to have blood relatives. That was my main mission in life, and I didn't have my first daughter until I was 34, because the clock was ticking, and I thought, I've got to do it now. So and then I just knew that I would be able to pour all the love that I've got that I've never really been able to express, or all the lack of love that, you know, the love I didn't receive, just pour all that into them.
Yeah. That's lovely. That pouring the love in. I was listening to a podcast on the way back from swimming today, and they were talking about they hit me with I love dichotomies, or you know, like opposites, and they talked about, well, in this context, seeking love or expressing love.
Yeah.
Seeking love or expressing love. And for some reason that kind of hit me hard.
Yeah.
You were expressing your love. You were pouring your love into your kids.
Yeah, because I didn't get it, you know, and I think, you know, lots of adoptees that I've spoken to, you know, that's what we're just all looking for, that mother's love, and, you know, searching for it. And lots of us try finding it with a partner, you know, and often it doesn't work. And, you know, I'm 56 now, and I've never felt the love for my children in a partner, which is, you know, it is a shame and it is quite sad. But because of that seeking love that I've never been able to find until I had children, so I pour it into them. And, you know, they're kids, and they don't sort of love you in the way that you need to be loved until they get older. But you know, now they are older, it's just such a lovely feeling to feel loved.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because I've never felt it before. But again, it's because, you know, I've not been loved by a partner in the way that I needed to be loved. Probably because I'm just, you know, I was always searching for that mother's love.
Yeah. There's a book about this. I think it's called Mother Hunger. Have you read the book by I think she's called Anne Fessler, the girls that went away? Have you read that book?
Oh no, that's in my list though. That's one I'm going to be listening to soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I think I did read it, or I started it a few years ago. I don't know whether I got to the end of it or not. You know, when I stopped watching Long Lost Family, reunion porn. Have you heard that word? Reunion porn. Great. Reunion porn. I stopped watching it, but because my wife's not particularly interested in it, and she says we watch enough television already. So, but when I see those birthdays, and I see that when I see that, when I feel their love,
Yeah.
back to Adele, to make you feel my love. I don't know whether she's going to be able to write another album until she gets dumped again. Apparently, listeners, that's her inspiration comes from ex-boyfriends or being dumped. Where was it? I feel their love. I feel the birth, and I cry.
Yeah.
I cry in tears of relief, and
Yeah.
same tears when I felt my birth mother's love reading that letter from her.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I used to, you know, I'd watch it and I'd be in floods of tears. And, you know, when I was younger, I'd be like, that's what I want, you know, it's not fair. And, you know, it was all about me. But when I did meet my real mum 30 years ago, we were nothing alike, absolutely nothing alike. And even though it was a lovely moment, meeting her, she'd actually said on the phone, when we meet, no hugs, just shake hands. And I thought, oh, that's a bit kind of, rejecting again. And I suppose, I didn't want a relationship with her. We went to stay for a weekend, and after that, because I was in the army at the time and I was going to Bosnia the next day, and she never wrote to me. And I thought, you're not rejecting me again. So I just sort of walked away and never had anything more to do with her until, I looked into it again a couple of years ago and discovered that she died. But my half brother says that she never got a letter from me and she didn't know where to write to. And so she rang the army up trying to find me. And I thought, well, if she really wanted to find me, she would have done. So again, it just seemed like, a bit of a poor excuse. And I believe everything happens for a reason. And I think, because she was an alcoholic and she had real serious mental issues, I think if the fact that I haven't been in touch with her for the last 30 years has probably been a really good thing, because I wouldn't want that disappointment and grief added to my life. And I know that sounds really selfish, but I look at these people now on the long lost families, and there's all the tears and the big reunion, but we never see what happens afterwards. And after a few conversations, they might think, we have got nothing in common. Even though we wanted that hole to be filled, it can't be filled, because the connections that weren't made at birth is the reason we feel like we do. And unless you can reunite and be loved just how you need to be loved, those connections won't be remade anyway.
Yeah.
And that sounds really harsh, but that there's no way that all those people live happily ever after. Some of them might.
Some of them do. And to be fair, they do sometimes they do follow-ups. And sometimes the follow-ups, it hasn't worked out, and sometimes it has. So I know, I don't know to what extent. There's not much focus on, let's obviously there's not much focus on the follow-up stuff, but it does, they do some follow-up stories. But what I want to kind of ask you about is, you've talked about filling that hole, and seeking to fill that hole elsewhere, and that not working, and yet you have been able to fix the connections that weren't joined at birth. You feel that she did want you. So yeah. What I'm trying to get at is, I think some of us, like me, right, think that, not anymore, but how I used to think that at one point I thought reunion will heal me.
Yeah.
But there seem to be two, from my conversations with so many 400 and odd people for the podcast, most of whom are adoptees, and pretty much all adoptees these days. Healing and reunion are two different things. That one does not, healing does not necessitate reunion, and reunion does not. Good reunions do not imply healing, do not make people whole. It's an inside job. It's about us.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And, I think I yearned to meet her so that I would be healed. But, it was completely not like that at all. And I think that, that was a huge wake-up call as well, because because that's just what I always assumed would complete me. But, you know, I think whatever she was like, I don't think it would have made much difference. You know, I had this image of her being this real successful businesswoman, and I can see the picture in my head now. She'd come out the door with her suit on and run down the stairs off to get her taxi to work with her briefcase, and you know, that's the picture. I think I'd convinced myself that's what she was like, because you know, I've always worked hard, and my biggest thing is that I have to achieve, and so I thought I must have got that from her. Yeah, and when we met, she was completely the opposite. And I wouldn't say I was disappointed or shocked. I was just really surprised. And then, you know, a few weeks ago, I said to you yesterday, for the very first time, I really didn't want to admit that I was glad I was adopted. Because, you know, I was brought up in, even though I didn't feel loved, I was brought up in a normal home with where my needs were, you know, basic human needs other than love were fulfilled. And, you know, I was brought up with good values, and mum and dad were both really decent people. Everybody, you know, really liked them, thought they were pillars of the community, as we say. And, you know, that must be where I got my values and my ethics and outlook on life from, even though I don't want to admit that.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have had those if I'd have been brought up by two alcoholics with two half brothers who were alcoholics as well.
The apple doesn't fall very far from the tree, as they say.
No.
Apart from when it lands in a different valley, of course. As what would you say, if anything, has kind of got in the way of your healing?
Oh, I'll have to think about that. Just believing that, you know, previously that I could never be loved. Which is really silly, because everybody can be loved. You know, nearly everybody is loved by somebody. But I think, you know, that's a subconscious thought with lots of adoptees, isn't it? You know, through sort of late teens. For me, definitely from all through my teenage years, that was, you know, very specific in my mind. And then probably for another 5 years, when I was sort of late 30s, early 40s, I felt like that. But, you know, I don't know whether it's because I'm older now, but, you know, that's just a silly thing to think. So that subconscious feeling of that is what I've really worked on to, you know, not believe and break that connection in my head.
Yeah.
Because it's not true. Everybody can be loved.
One of the most significant barriers, we talked about this before we hit record, me. One of the most significant barriers I think there is to healing, on the basis of what other adoptees have told me, is the belief that we can't.
Yeah. Well, you know, I often look at a lot of other people, and a lovely lady said to me the other day, we haven't cornered the market on trauma, and I love that, because, you know, often we feel that we have. But you know, when you look at all the statistics, a lot say that the evidence is that adoptees are the most traumatized out of every group of, you know, people who have suffered trauma. And I think because that is a statistic, we all believe that, and then that doesn't really help us, because we believe it and think, oh gosh, that is true. But then I think of all the other people who have suffered really badly in their lives, you know, children who were abused, you know, mentally and physically. And, you know, you hear of all the stories in other countries and, well, even in this country, and they've been through absolute hell. And you think, you know, like I said to you earlier, it'd be really interesting to be able to get inside somebody's head who's not adopted and feel if that pain is still there. But you know, we can't corner the market on it because there's so many people who've been through a lot worse. And you know, we've only got one life, we're only here once, and we've got to make the most of it and try and just work around all the negativity that just holds us back.
Yeah. My most important long-term mentor, and the lady that really opened stuff up for me in terms of what was going on for me internally. I'm gonna name check her and read and mention a book just because I think it's great and I want to pay back. So she's called Elizabeth Ivory, and the book is called "It's Not Your Fault," and it's on Amazon. You can get it on a Kindle. And I'll put a link in that show notes because I know that a lot of you are like me, walking the dog when they listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do that. Or ironing. I
don't.
yeah, I iron, and I'm not trying to score any brownie points here because that's the only thing I do in the house, right? And I don't always do all of it. Anyway, so she was sexually abused by her dad.
Yeah.
Liz Ivory was. And I met her maybe 17 years ago, something like that. And when I heard about that, I thought, if someone can heal from that, then anybody can heal from anything.
Yeah. Well, it's like Goodwill Hunting, isn't it? That when you said that it's not your fault, that's the most powerful moment in that film when, you know, he says to him continuously until he actually listens to him, it's not your fault. And yeah, and he was physically abused by a foster parent or a stepdad. I love that film. It really grounds me, you know,
Yeah.
and definitely stops me feeling sorry for myself at all.
Yeah.
Because it's not our fault, you know, if we're being given away or being abused as a child. It's just, yeah, it's terrible.
I need to watch that film again.
Oh, it's amazing. One of the few films that I still cry at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good tears.
Yeah. Yeah, just feeling that, you know, that person's pain. And, you know, and there's still, even though he'd been through an awful lot, there's still a lot of, you know, millions of people who go through even worse, you know, daily.
Yeah.
And, you know, lots of those people become really happy and successful because they're really determined not to repeat history.
Yeah. I had this question. A question came to me a couple of days ago. I've not had a chance to ask anybody about it, so I thought it's kind of related. Um, has your relationship with trauma changed?
Um, yeah, yeah, I think that I don't feel traumatized anymore. I don't feel that you know, what I thought I went through, which I clearly thought was a really terrible thing, um, was nowhere near as bad as my brain was making it out to be. You know, now I just look at it's a bit of a bit unfortunate that you know, I wasn't wanted, but I wouldn't have been who I am today if I'd have been brought up by my real mother. Probably would have been an absolute nightmare. I probably would have been a lot more traumatized than I am now. But you know, that particular trauma that we have is clearly very specific. But you know, look at how many children are adopted or fostered, or you know, for whatever reason, given away. And lots of people do heal and can live with it. And it's about living in the moment, isn't it? And just trying to enjoy life as much as possible. So yeah, it was just a sad situation, but I can't let it haunt me anymore because it's not achieving anything.
Brilliant. The phone's gone a bit wonky, listeners. I think normal service will be resumed fairly shortly.
We're all good.
Oh, right, she's all good, yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that I've not asked you about?
Yeah, I think, you know, the main thing that I've realised was that I was just constantly searching for something, and you know, and I didn't have a clue what it was, and just doing all these crazy things to try and fill the void, fix the hole in my heart, you know, all that wasted time when, you know, like you say, you can only do it internally, and looking for anything externally isn't the answer, because you know, we can only, if we love ourselves and can forgive ourselves and you know, not feel all that pain, then we can move on. You know, and even though I did discover that I was wanted and loved, you know, it's still only, you know, she never actually told me that. It's still only what other people have said. And if I'd have just believed or been able to make myself believe, you know, before I knew anything about being adopted, if I'd have just thought she did love me, but for some reason she couldn't keep me, you know, then that would heal so many people if we could think that, wouldn't it? Rather than thinking we weren't loved, we weren't wanted. Why do we choose to believe that story, you know, when we don't actually know the truth? I think people who do meet their real mums and the, you know, the mum does tell them, I really wanted you and I really loved you, then they're the only people who have actually got that confirmation. But meeting them or not meeting them doesn't really make that much difference to everybody else, because you know, whatever anybody else says, we'll believe it if we want to. But yeah, it'd just be so much better if we could all just think it is what it is, you know, we were loved, we were wanted, but unfortunately we weren't brought up by our natural parents.
Feels like a good place to bring it in.
Okay.
Do you want me to put your Facebook link on the show notes, or would you rather not?
All my social medias on my business, so probably not.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, listeners.
In fact, no, you can. Yeah, you can. My main Facebook is just my own personal Facebook. Yeah, yes. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
We'll do that.
Okay. Thank you, Simon.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, listeners. We'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.